This is a hole under the arm of a very favourite jumper. It's not mine, but I know the person loves it. And so it's worth mending because the rest of it's okay. What's happened is that the seam is split. You can see those two bits are split. But also here is a hole. So I have to darn those together to create a better looking garment and then stitch along the seams. I'm lucky enough to have odds and sods of threads. So I found that I had some embroidery thread left over. Could have taken a couple of threads of that. The orange and the pink. Obviously I'd chosen the pink. It is good to choose colours that are just a little bit darker because they shine out less. So I'm going to turn it inside out and do the mend. So what I've worked out, and we've got it inside out, is that this is a split. So obviously one of the threads has gone along there. So my first thing to do is to join that together. And as you can see, instantly it makes it look better. So I'm going to secure the thread here at the start of the split. And then I'm going to do what I did before, which is go through the back. And it is sort of darning. I don't call it darning because darning used to be making a new cloth. I'm going to turn it slightly, I'm sorry about that. So I'm going to go picking up the threads behind in one direction, pulling it gently together, not over pulling it, and go in the other direction. Just gently easing it together. Now I've gone quite far outside the tear because obviously if I go too close it'll start to undo again. There we are. I do pat my knitting quite a lot when I'm mending. It sort of helps me feel that it's going to be flat and work. There. Now later on I might go in another direction on that just to secure it. But that has pulled it together a little bit better. Yeah. There. Now I'm going to join these two together. So I'll go up through the seam. You know, I'm just demonstrating this. That'll need steaming down. I'm just demonstrating this, but I have to make it up as I go along. And the more confident you get, the more you can make it up as you go along. And so long as you don't make things too tight, you can usually sort of, with wool, pat it into place and steam it. So now I'm going to move my needle. Actually, I'm going to catch that bit first. There we are. And I'm going to then move my needle over to the other hole in the underarm. So here we go. There we are. Now, so we've more or less mended that. We'll go back and fiddle with it later. Now I'm going to mend those bits together. So what we did originally was pull that together. You can see it's a bit lumpy, but we'll go back and attend to that. We'll also press it and steam it into place. And then here there was the knitting below had become separated from the edge of the knitting, was sort of knitted rope there. So I just bound that together. So now we're only left with a hole that's more or less a seam. So I'm going to now stretch it out on itself. That's the seam for the armhole. And I'm basically going to backstitch it all the way along. As I say, men's in the underarms of knitwear, if they've been allowed to go as long as this one has, so it's turned into a big hole, aren't perfect, but it will do. I think I might try and get that bit out. There. So I'm going to backstitch just across this hole, leaving a little bit of knitwear because knitwear does undo, so I'm going to leave a little bit of a knitwear seam allowance there. And when I've secured it, we'll take it to the pressing table and show you the final result. There we are. Let's see what it looks like, because I don't know yet, because I've just been working on the inside, not the outside. There we are. So this is the final mend finished. You can see I've not been able to match these lines exactly, but they're good enough. And you can see that where there was a very large hole, we've got a bit of a lump, but this is under the arm. And I don't regard that as being a problem. I gave it a sort of steam press so that the wool pulls itself together a little bit. I didn't press the iron on the garment, I just steamed it and let it dry like that. And that makes the jumper wearable again.